Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the second book of Chronicles, that is Divrei Hayamim Bet. We are about to study chapter 4 together, that is Perek Daled. um, it's a relatively quick one that we're going to study today because as we mentioned before, the details of the building of the temple, which are recounted here in the book of Chronicles and Divrei Yamim, are a lot less detailed than in the book of Malachim and the book of Kings, where so here that just most for the most part it's the basic points are reviewed, but not so much of the specific details and measurements of every small thing. And the reason is obviously because here, Divrei Yamim, this is a review, and this is really just meant to impress the people of the time when the book of Divrei Yamim is being written of the grandeur and greatness of the building of the Beit HaMikdash. And that is really the point here. So, and that point is certainly well made. So, as we studied in chapter 3, now, when we studied the building of the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where the Aron Kodesh, where the Holy Ark was placed, now we're moving outside to the courtyard where the Mizbeach, where the altar upon which the sacrifices were brought. So this Mizbeach has various names, but just for reference, this is the large altar which is in the outer courtyard, which the general population had access to, and it is where people would bring their sacrifices to be brought, and where the communal sacrifices were brought, where that action was taking place, so to speak. And so it is often called the Mizbeach HaNechoshet, which is often translated as copper, but again, I've been translating it as bronze, which is much more historically accurate, although bronze has copper in it. But bronze was the metal being used at the time for these kinds of things. And the Mizbeach HaNechoshet, sometimes called the Mizbeach HaOlah, the Mizbeach of the burnt sacrifices, and other names as well. So, Vayas Mizbach Nechoshet, he built a bronze altar, Esrim Amma Arko, 20 cubits in length, Esrim Amma Rachbo, and 20 cubits in width. So it was a square, Eser Amot Komaso, and 10 Amot high. So 10 Amot would be approximately 15 feet high. So we're talking about an impressive sized altar. Not a small one, much, much larger than the one inside the Mizbeach, the altar of gold upon which incense was brought. Vayases hayam mutzak, and he made the sea. The sea here means the large basin of water. It's basically a huge bowl of water. And this was meant to take the place of the kior. The kior was the laver, I think is what it's called, is which contained the water from which the priests would wash before doing the temple service. So this had a much, much larger one, this large sea, mutzak, which is cast, means cast metal. Eser ba'ama misfaso el sfaso. It was from that its diameter was 10 amot, so 15 feet by 15 feet in diameter. A gol saviv, it was round all around it. V'chamesh ba'amo kamaso, its depth was 5 amot, which is about 7.5 feet deep. The kav shloshim ba'ama, and its circumference was about 30 amot. Yasov Oso Saviv, which went all the way around. A lot of people ask here, it should be pi going around 3.14, right? Not 30 going around. So in other words, so it should be 30.14 amot. Um, the for the circumference. Generally it's understood, and most likely the proper understanding is that it's the 30 amot are just approximate. It's about 30 amot all around, but if you want to be exact, it would be more like 31.4, etc. There are other ways, and many other people that teach this like to mention, and I heard it on one of Rabbi Menachem Liebtag's, who I have learned a lot from in learning Tanakh and learning the words of the prophets. he quoted in one of his lectures that I heard, I can't remember where, um, the Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, the famous rabbi of 18th century Vilna in Lithuania. He had an ingenious solution for this problem, where the word kav, which means a circumference, which here reads kav shloshim ba'amot, the circumference of 30 amot, in Melachim, it is there's what's called a kriyu ktiv. A kriyu ktiv is when the text, when sometimes there's two versions of the text, and we preserve those two different versions by having a kriyu ktiv. We read the word one way, but we still spell it a different way in order to show that there's a different version. So and there it that the kav has a hey, the letter hey, which is the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which its numerical value is is five. So there's an additional hey in the word, which is not read because the correct version which we read has no hey in it, but the written version has a hey, suggesting there's another version. And now the numerical value of the entire word kav kuf vav with a hey versus kuf vav without a hey, um, it's either 111 with a hay or 106 without a hay. If you divide 111 by 106, you get um, just about exactly equal to pi. So it's suggesting that our reading is correct, that it's saying 30 amot, but if you read carefully and look at the careful words, its real circumference was actually equivalent to 31.4, and then a few more digits. Leads us very, very close to pi if you do the math. Anyway, so that's an ingenious solution. And the Gaon of Vilna, the great Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, was famous for his ingenious solutions to these things. And I wanted to mention that because it's pretty cool. And I wanted to give credit to where I heard it, because that is proper thing to do. So udemus bikarim tachaslo, and there was a form, a shape, or figures of cattle that were underneath the sea, saviv saviv, spread around. So sovivim also around it, eser ba'ama. They were each one was 10 amot. Was 10 cubits large. Makifim metayam saviv, and they surrounded the sea all around it. Shnayim turim habakar yitzukim b'mutzakto. There were in two rows. All they were all so made out of cast metal. So there's a huge amount of metal being used here. Is an immensely large bowl full of water. Omeid al shnei masar bakar, and upon these the sea was stood upon, rested on the backs of these 12 cattle. Shlosha ponim safona. Two of them were facing north of Shlosha Ponim Yaman, three facing north, three facing south, west, Shlosha Ponim Negba, three facing south, Shlosha Ponim Zachan, three facing east, Vayam Aleim Milmala, and the sea was resting upon it, V'chol Achorei and Baisab, and the backs of them were facing inward into the inside of this circle. So there's all kinds of ideas as to what the symbolism. The 12 clearly throws us to the symbolism of the 12 tribes of Israel, and clearly unifying the 12 tribes, depicting the tribes as oxen. You can imagine an ox is usually a symbol of strength, a symbol of 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 accepting a burden upon oneself, and plowing through it as hard as one can. So there's a lot of symbolism in this, but regardless, this is the images that Solomon Shlomo chose to use, and this is what people would see when they walk into the Beit HaMikdash, into the temple, to bring a sacrifice, to pray, to present themselves before God. This huge image, first of all, of the huge altar, and then this giant bronze bowl of water being carried on the backs of these 12 oxen. The avio tefach, the width of the sea, was a tefach, which is usually about somewhere between 4 and 6 inches, a handbreadth. Usifato kemasei sifat kos, and its edge was like the edges of a cup. Perach Shoshanos, it was like decorated all around with the forms of flowers. Machazik Batim, it would hold in the bat measurement, Shloshet Alafim Yachil, 3,000 bat measurements, which exactly how much a bat contains. You can look that up. I'm not 100% sure, but this is a huge amount of water. Vayas Kiorim, and then in addition, he made another lavers, 10 asara, 10 of them. Vayitain chamisha miyamin, and he put five on one side, v'chamisha mismol, and five on the other, l'rachzobam, for them to wash. Et maaseh ha'ola yadichu bam, when they would wash the parts of the burnt offerings that were required washing, they would wash them with those with through those lavers, l'rachzola kohanim bo. But the giant sea, the huge sea, was used for the Kohen in themselves, for the priests themselves. So again, I'll correct myself if I gave the wrong impression, but these kiorim were more for the carbonot, for the actual sacrifices where they had to wash them, whereas the sea then was used for the Kohen and for the priests. Vayas es minorot hazahav, and he also made uh, um, 10 menorot, 10 candelabras, lamps. We know the menorah, the famous one with the seven branches, but he made 10 additional ones, kimishpatam, according to their laws. Presumably, this means, on a simple level, this means that it was built in such a way as to they replicated the same style and fashion as the same fashion as the original one. It's possible that how he had 10 of them um, in order to to because it needs a lot more light. The sanctuary in the wilderness, the Mishkan was, well, the tabernacle was much smaller. This is much larger building and requires much more light. And when he made them the same way, the same style as the original menorah. He didn't behechal. He placed them within the heichal, within the inner sanctum, chamesh miyamin, five on the right side, b'chamesh mismol, and five on the left side. So similar to making extra kruvim, extra cherubs, he made extra images. I'm sorry, extra menorot, extra candelabras. Vayash shulchanot asara, and then in addition, the tables of the showbread, he also made 10 tables. Vayanach behechal, and he placed them also in the inner sanctuary. Chamisha miyamin, v'chamisha mismol, five and five on the right and left. Vayas mizrukei zahav mea, and he made 100 gold bowls for the mizrakim are the bowls within which the blood was caught, from which the priests would bring the blood to sprinkle upon the altar. Vayas chatzar hakohanim, and he made a court for the kohanim, for the priests, the area where the priests were did their worship, which was reserved for them. V'ha'azorah hagdolah, and a very large courtyard. Udilasos lazara, he made doors for the azara, for the courtyard. Vidalsosayem tzipanochoshes, and these large doors were covered with bronze. So the outer area was a lot of bronze, the bronze mizbeach, the bronze sea, the bronze lavers, the bronze doors. The inner courtyard was mostly gold, right? Which we said that it was coated in gold. The walls, the table for the showbread was gold. The mizbeach, the altar for the incense, was gold. The menorot, the candelabras, were gold, etc. Ve'etayam nasan mikesef ha'imonis, and the yam, the large sea, he placed on the right side, kedma mimul negba, on the southeast corner of the Temple Mount. So if you imagine yourself on the Temple Mount today, and you imagine that if you're standing on the east side looking towards the west, right? So let's say you'd be and then you'd be looking towards the Holy of Holies, then this would be um, on the southeast corner, right? The southeast corner. So that would, I'm trying to think, um, so that would be right if you're well, the right side would be depending on which side you're looking from. Uh, so anyway, so it's in the southeast corner. Bayas Huram. So Huram, we mentioned before, he was the guy who was came down from Tyre to help the building. So he made us hasiros, the pail, the buckets or bowls, ve'atayaim, and the shovels, ve'atamizrakot, and the those were the bowls that were used to collect the blood. Vayechal Huram lasos samelacha, and Huram completed all of the work. Asher asal Melech Shlomo v'Veis Elohim, that he had done on behalf of the King Solomon in the house of God. Amudim Shnayim, the two columns, vihagulos, and the globes, vihakotarot, and the capitals, al rosha amudim shtayim, which were on top of the great pillars, vihasivachot shtayim, and the two pieces of um of sivachot. Those are lechasos estei gulot hakotarot, to cover. And those are like mesh, like a meshwork of metal to cover over these large globes that were on top of the capitals, Ashel Rosh Almadim, that were on top of the capitals, Betarimonim, and the decorations that were in the shape of pomegranates, Arba Meot, there were 400, Lishteas Vachot, they were made in around and enmeshed into this network of this artwork. Shnayim Turim Rimonim, two rows of pomegranates, Lasvacha Echad for each one, L'chasot Eshtei Hagulot Akotorot, which covered over all of the globes that were on top, Ashal Pnei Amudim, that were on top of these pillars. You can just imagine how beautiful this was. V'yata mechonot asa, v'yata kiorot asa al mechonot. He made the stands and the upon which the kiorot, the lavers for washing, which we mentioned were standing. So he made bases for them to stand on. At Tayama echad, he made this giant sea, v'et habakar shnei masor tachtav, and the 12 oxen beneath it, v'et hasirot, v'et hayoim, v'et hamizlagot, v'et kol klehem. This is just a list of all of the things. Asa Huram aviv lamelech. Huram um, uh, made, right, Lamelech Shlomo, right, Huram, who was the person in charge, right, uh, uh, for made for his master Shlomo Lebeis Adonai, for the house of God, Nechoshet Maruk, which were made of shined bronze, right? So bronze, kind of a similar to gold like color, shined and beautiful looking bronze in color. Bekikar Hayarden Yitzchakam HaMelech, the place where he had these done, where the casts were done, were in the Jordan Plains, Ba'aviho Adama, in the as they were dug out of the earth, Bein Sukkot to Bein Tzreidasa, between the place of Sukkot and Tzreida. Vayat Shlomo kol kelim ha'eler of Ma'od, and he made many of these kelim, many of these vessels, kilo nechkar mishkal hanachoshes, because the so much that he could not even weigh. He didn't even know how. They couldn't measure how much bronze was being used. There was so much bronze being used. Vayash Shlomo et kol hakelim, and Shlomo made all of the vessels asher Beit Elohim, that was made for the house of God, Beit Mizbach HaZahav, and he also made the golden altar, that's the smaller one on the inside, Beit HaShulchanot, and the tables that we mentioned, the Aleim Lechem Aponim, and upon them they were used for the showbread, which we discussed a little bit earlier. And the candelabras and the candles, liva'aram, in order to light them and burn them, kamishbar, according to the laws, lifnei hadvir, so they should burn and give light in front of the devir, which is the Holy of Holies, because these were in the chamber that preceded the Holy of Holies. Zahav Sagur, they were made of solid gold. Via perach, via neirot, via melkachayim zahav, hu mechlot zahav, and the flower shaped ornaments and the candles and the lamps themselves, and the melkachayim, which are the little clampers, like that you use to grasp the wicks with and set the fires. They were all made of gold, right? Of the purest form of gold. V'ha mizamrot, and the v'ha mizrakot. These are the mizamrot, are the things that are used to put the snuffers that put the fires out, and the bowls that spritz the blood. V'ha kapot, and the ladles, the spoons. V'ha machtot, and the shovels. The sagur, all made of pure gold. Upesach habayis daltotav hapnimios l'kodesh hakodashim, and the doors of the inner by it of the inner courtyard, the inner parts of the doors, right, Likodesh HaKadoshim, that led towards the Holy of Holies, V'dalse Habayis LaHeichal, and the doors that led into the Heichal itself, Zahav, were also covered in gold. So this is the description of the building. And this is all, there's, like I said, even this was pretty detailed, but a lot less detailed than in the Sefer Melachim in the Book of Kings. Feel free to look there if this is something you want to um, research a little bit more, but we get the idea. We have this beautiful building. We discussed all of the major structures of the building. And in the next chapter, the building will be complete and we'll see where Solomon takes it from there. So, this is the conclusion of chapter 4. Thank you so much for studying chapter 4 together with me. Looking forward to studying chapter 5 and, of course, the rest of this wonderful book of Chronicles together. Have a wonderful day.